down here. So as we're going through, just kind of follow along and we'll talk about flower parts and functions, okay? So here's our objectives for the day. These are what you'll be able to do at the end. Describe the parts of a flower. So that's what we just had to do on the quiz. Explain the purpose of a flower. List some different types of flowers. Describe the difference between monocot and dicot flowers, and explain the processes of pollination and fertilization. So it seems like a lot, but the first four are pretty much all just about a flower, so not too tough. Okay? So, describe the parts of a flower. Here's your first one. A flower is the reproductive part of flowering plants. So that's what a flower is designed to do. It's created for reproduction. So the flower is what creates more flowers, creates more flowers, creates more flowers, right? What's the goal of all living things? Good. Yeah. So the goal of all living things is to create more living things, right? Most all living things. Okay? So some flowers are attractive, they have appealing fragrances. You guys were all around when we were doing the Valentine's Day roses and stuff, right? Yeah? No? You guys knew that was going on in this classroom? Yeah, you did. Anyway, so we had all those roses and everything, so those flowers are specifically because they have attractive and appealing appearances. Other than that, they're really not very useful. They're not useful for agriculture or for people to eat, but they are pretty, and so they give us a good feeling when we get flowers, right? So here's some examples. Does anyone know what this one is? What? Not a hibiscus, orchid. Okay, some good guesses. Tegan guesses a pink one. You got the color right. What about this one? Does anyone know? Okay. What about this one? Everyone should know this. A rose. There we go. Okay. So this first one is a stargazer lily. These are some of my favorite flowers. They're super cool. They come in all kinds of different colors and stuff. So that's an example of one that is an appealing fragrance. It's on your notes. It tells you to give some examples. You can write down your own, but I'm just giving you some examples here. This is a gardenia, which are very popular decorative flowers. And the last one is a rose, obviously. Okay? Good on that. We've got 3 examples of flowers that are just basically for appearances. Okay, so some flowers are important as a step in producing fruit and seed. So this is where it becomes important in agriculture for these flowers. So this first one is an example of a pea fruit. So if you guys have ever grown peas, you'll notice that before it produces the fruit in the pea pod, it has a little bud, a little flower, and that flower has to be pollinated in order to grow the peas so that we can eat them. So a pea flower is an example of one flower. Raspberry flower, same thing. When you're growing raspberries, it comes up with little buds. And then pineapples, they actually have a cool little thing. It's called an inflorescence that comes up before they can produce the pineapple fruit. Okay. And then you guys have all seen apple buds, right? Apple blossoms? Yeah. Good. So same thing. They have to be pollinated in order for them to produce the seed. So that's why these flowers are highly important to what we eat a lot. So the major parts of flowers are to support production of fruit and seed. So that's what the parts of the flowers are for. They go towards producing fruit and seeds so that they can regenerate and keep the cycle going. Okay? Here's all the parts. Did anyone put this on their pre-quiz? You wanna get all these? Got some of them? Got a petal? Good. So these are all the parts of the flower, and you guys will see on the flower diagram at the bottom of your notes, has them all labeled. But the stamen, filament, petal, anther, ovary, pistil, style, and stigma, those are all the parts. Okay? What? You kill what? You did? Okay, so here's the parts of the flower. The pistil, you can tell, is these three things together. So stigma, style, and ovary, they're all one thing together. Stamen are all these together, but they have individual parts. Okay? Yeah, so if you said pistil, we'd know you're talking about the stigma, style, and ovary. You still need to know them. You have to know each part. So we're gonna go through them. Alright? So the first part is a sepal. Does anyone know what this looks like? Yeah. Yeah, you got it right. A little thing. What does it do? What's a sepal do for the flower? There you go. So before the flower opens, you'll notice it's like a bud, and it's covering, the sepal covers the petals and everything that are going to form and bloom. And then, so they're the outer parts of the flower, and they cover the bud before it opens. Usually they're green, and it also protects the ovary inside of the flower. Okay? So protection to the developing bud. Okay? I'll give you guys a second on this. I have some examples up here as well. You guys can see like the green parts at the bottom, how it kind of forms a little protective casing around the ovary at the bottom. Okay. Everyone got that? Sepals. So there's an inner and outer ring, and these are known as the calyx. Okay? They're in and outer ring, sorry. So in the outer ring of the flower is the sepal, the calyx, and that's part of that system. Okay? This is kind of what they look like. So when you're looking on your paper, it has that little U-shaped deal. That's what goes around the flower. So next is the petals. This is the exciting part of flowers. This is what makes them pretty and stuff like that. They're located just inside the sepals, usually brightly colored. Why are they brightly colored? Why aren't they just bland? Tegan? Good. Attract bees. So their main goal is to reproduce, right? Because they're a living organism. So the reason they have the brightly colored leaves and stuff like that is to attract animals or insects that can pollinate other flowers. So that's the goal. That's why we get these pretty whites and pinks and oranges and all the different kinds of flowers. Also because we crossbreed them to make them look like that. But they naturally form these bright fluorescent colors so that they can be pollinated from another flower. Okay? They also protect the stamens and pistil, help protect pollen from the air. So if all the pollen just blows away and doesn't go to any other flowers, nothing will reproduce, right? So the petals also are a protective layer besides that. So inside the petals, you have the stamens and the pistil. And so if those were just exposed to the air, then they could be carried away and then they don't reproduce with other flowers. Okay? Makes sense? Okay. And they're in the inner ring. So the outer ring is the calyx, the petals are the inner ring known as the corollas. this is an example of what they look like. You guys have that on your notes already. So now we go to the stamens. So the way you can remember this is in the word it says mens. And stamens are the male parts of a flower. So the parts included under the stamens umbrella are male parts. So they produce pollen and are the male parts. So that's what stamens are. So if you're ever confused, stamens, it's easy to remember, it says men right in the word. So this is the male part of the flower. So it consists of a filament and an anther. So that's the parts of it. When you say stamen, you're talking about the filament and the anther. All the filament is a piece to hold up the anther at the top. So it's just a little thing with a knob at the top. The filament is the stem-like structure, and then the anther, is the top knob. That's what produces the pollen. So that's what they look like. So you guys have kind of seen these in flowers, right? When we're looking at that stargazer lily, you can see them really good because they stick up. They're the little thingies on the flowers, okay? Those are the stamens. Next we have the pistil, and the pistil, usually I just remember it, it's not the male part. That's all. So stamens, that's the men, that's easy. So you know the other one must be the female part, and that's the pistil. There's a lot of fun things to remember. If any of you guys ever learned about parts of the flower, female parts, little sayings or whatever, I've heard a lot of different ones. But basically, pistil, female parts, so however you can remember that. So it contains, in the pistil, is the stigma, style, and ovary. So these are the parts you need to remember it, not just pistil. You gotta remember also the parts of the pistil. So we have the stigma, the style is the tube, and then at the bottom is the ovary. So those are all the female parts of the flower. Okay? Makes sense? You guys could look at it on a real flower. Okay. So next is the stigma. It's the opening at the end of the pistil for the entry of the pollen. So this part of the pistil is what grabs the pollen from the anthers, and that's how it fertilizes to make a seed or fruit. Okay? Then the style basically is the tube, so it just leads from the stigma into the ovary. So this directs the pollen. You get the pollen from the male parts of the flower. It goes into the style and then leads down into the ovary. So it basically directs traffic down to there. Okay? And the ovary, this is where all magic happens. So it has ovules which are fertilized by the pollen, and so it has some species develop into large fleshy fruit structure. What's an example of this? What happens when you fertilize a apple blossom? It makes a apple. Good. Some good example of that, right? Some of them develop into large fleshy fruit structure. So what is the apple designed to do? Yeah, so the apple is the reproductive part of the apple tree to make new apple trees, but inside an apple are what? Seeds. So the fruit is actually designed by nature to protect the seeds and also to disperse them. So it's a pretty smart idea because it made them really sweet and nice, so animals eat them, and seeds cannot be digested, so the animals go wander around, and once they digest the digestible part of the apple, the seeds pass through the system into their waste, and then they can grow apple trees out there. So pretty smart reproductive capabilities there for seeds, especially the fruits. So now that we've talked about this, here's it all on the diagram again. So you can see how it kind of looks on a flower. You have the sepal, protects the ovary and before it buds. Once it blossoms,